That the tax reform bill is in order and Nigerians should work towards its perfection and also her progress.
Yes, sir.
For so long, we have lived on a decadence of tax reforms that has not produced anything good or meaningful to this nation. We from the north, we are categorically in support of this tax reform bill. And let me tell you one thing, to those who have for the past few days castigating Senator Jibril Barrow, they are nothing but enemies of the north, enemies of Nigeria, enemies of our generation, enemies of progress, and they are supporters of disrogation. We call on Nigerians here, as we have vowed, we shall continue to voice from one state to the other, from one region, from Middle Belt, from North Central, Northwest, Northeast. We shall canvass, and this bill, by the grace of God, shall see the light of the day. Amen. We pray that Mr. President will not relent. The President of the Senate, supported by Senator Jibril Barrow, Deputy Senate President, must ensure that this very bill is looked into properly and see that it is passed. It's a germane issue. It is something that is overdue. It is something that Nigerians should look forward to making progress. We cannot continue to stand stagnant. This is our own generation. Generations of those who have led this country in the past have failed us. We are in support of this very generation. The man himself, who is the chairman of the tax review, came out to list the what people we are thinking before. We are just personal things that will Alpha consultant. Will it be the consultant of the entire project? These are small little cheap things. What we are looking at is what comes to the states. And the man have said that, for instance now, if you have, formally you have 5%, with this reform bill now, you should be able to have about 15 to 20%. So it's a progress. We cannot continue to stand stagnant for decades, years and years. So this is just what we need. My name is Atijani Kabir Mohammed.
Government oil was discovered in the creeks of the Niger Delta. 1957-58. Nigeria found free money in the creeks of the Niger Delta. And we left taxation, just as we left agriculture and manufacturing. So that's where we are.
At the end of the day, and that might likely be the end of Nigeria. And that is why the Northerners understand this thing very well, and they have positioned the repentant Boko Haram in the forest, in the entire south. So it's a very dangerous thing.
Give Lagos State and some other southwestern states more funds. What is your take as regards the North still opposing to this bill?
Yes, a lot of them has reservations because a lot of Nigerians too have reservations. Why are the federal government should be giving this tax so much priority? I mean, there might be something that people does not understand. The motive. These people now has become a fraternity in Asurok. I mean, how the Yoruba has constituted themselves to fraternity in governance in Nigeria under APC of Bola Ahmed Tinubu presidency. The fear is there. The agenda is undefined. Because we expected that this thing could have been a restructuring would have been holistic, and where every region, everywhere will control his or her resources down to states. And somebody has proposed this thing over and over and over again. There is Arewa, for instance, and there is Odua, and there's Biafra. I know that when you mention Biafra, there's an issue. And when you talk about Arewa, there's no issue. When you talk about Odua, they saw these people as indigenous people. But when you mention Biafra, heads begin to turn. But let us look at it from that angle. The Arewa, the Awasas, the Odua, the Biafrans, of course, that's what it is, and they said, okay, these three regions now, have a fairly decentralized system at the center. Then go and control whatever you're going to control. If you want to create 10,000 states, it's your business. It's not our business. Go to the north. If you want to create only one state, only one region, it's your business. Just go and govern yourself. Self-determined confederation. That's what you saw Ibrahim Traore did. That's what they call confederation. They pulled out. That is what Ojukwu actually wanted to happen. So why are Nigerians pretending to even face reality and at least see whether Nigeria will work or survive or not? But the tax reform bill, reform policy was actually shut down the day it was made public by the APC under Bola Ahmed Tinubu. They not only shut it down, and until their own interest is being factored in. And initially it was suspicious. If you allowed that thing to thrive, it would have mean that the most commercial and productive South would have been a big threat to the North. Or 60% down to 30%. Now you know what it means. But to balance it now, you can't say that they have actually gotten it right. This thing is just a waste of time for so many Nigerians. And the North is saying it that there's this plan of consolidation of national resources and commercial and government structure, factored into the Yoruba clan of fraternity in government, which is a very big, agenda. If one was reason towards that direction, so the North can never be comfortable with that, because what happened to the Sultan of Sokoto 20-something oil wells? What happened to them? They are the ones that controlling the resources in the Niger Delta. What happens to them? If you wanted to make this thing work and give everybody a sense of belonging, there are so many proposals like that. The tax reform bill is just, a bit of restructuring. You just want to pick this one here, you want to pick this one now. Then how do you balance it? Derivation, whatever you derive is what you're going to do. And if you look at it very well, the federal system is still not being able to be decentralized. The government, out of the 100%, the government take 50%, then the 30%, go to whether state or whatever, then the 20% will be shared, I don't know what they actually mean by that. Then, and actually, there are some states has been claimed, even though we are not, it is not correct. There's no state in the northern part of the country that is not viable, that does not have the economic will to sustain. And that is why we are saying that if you have given these people regionalism or regional or what confederation, whatever you call it, at the end, they will be able to look themselves inward and be say, okay, we are coming up with this kind of agenda. This is Arewa Republic, or Arewa region or whatever, under the umbrella of the so-called Nigeria. And this is what where it's like a safe rule to us. Where we have moved away from this British colonized, even though they have been talking about constitutional reform and all that. Bro, this is not what Nigeria needs now. Nigeria needs, to be reconstituted by force, going into regionalism, going into confederation, embracing Aburi. Since Gowon came out and said that when they were signing Aburi, he slept off. He didn't know what was happening. Can you imagine Gowon coming out to take the whole world, that he slept off? So then you wake up, you slept off in Abuja and wake up in Nigeria. So that's why there are so many reservations, and they're not seeing this thing, that this policy of tax reform is meant to, structure the national resources of the nation to a particular region, which are the Yorubas, and they are not comfortable with it. And they are already waiting for him, and they know we have to kick him at the end of the day. 2027, reform or no reform, Tinubu might decide to be the last president of Nigeria if he's been threatened. And the issue too of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is also there, because if he, at the end of the day, was able to carry out such policy already have been signed into bill and going to take place from 2026. And we are expecting reduction of food prices, and we are expecting the micro economy, to get a lifeline at the end of the day. Then we are also expecting, that subsidy would have been paid on all these foodstuffs and all that. Maybe Nigeria can be able to buy a bag of rice for 5,000 naira. That maybe to an extent. Then how do we now reconcile the sector, that needed to generate electricity to this now? Then somebody like yes, this kind of policy now is going to open doors for foreign investment at the end of the day, where we see foreigners, now coming in for micro, middle size industry and the rest of them. They need power too. They need electricity. Then how will you now factor those ones in now? Is this policy actually going to remove the tax burden on Nigerians? That's the question we need to ask. What is the commercial purpose of this? It's just to make the government more too comfortable, put a lot of money into their hand so that they can use it to deal with us again, 2027. So that the ordinary poor man cannot be able to have a voice. That's the fact. Because all the money you are seeing in their hands now, they're going to use it to prosecute 2027 election. And that is why they cannot to put more money in the hands of the government. And remember that this policy now, all the money will go to the federal government. Then the federal government will come out and say, okay, take. Is that what we are talking about? We are centralizing the same system that brought Nigeria to her knees. And you are continuing with that. That's why a lot of people say, can the northern political class be more sophisticated and learned and exposed more than the southern, politicians? Because we see to an extent, Bola Tinubu 2 years, has become a threat to democracy and Nigerians themselves. Because this has actually gone beyond expectation in terms of hyperinflation, in terms of lifespan, in terms of direct foreign investment, in terms of economic stability, in terms of inflation, everything. About 800 companies, micro companies in Nigeria have already shut down. A lot of businesses are closing down. People can no longer meet up, day-to-day running of their business. So the best thing is left for them, to run into debt, is to shut down. Homes are being broken up, and people are still saying insecurity. Breakup of Nigeria might be the last option. Whether tax policy works or tax policy does not work, that is not the issue.
So you feel that this tax reform can break up Nigeria if the North still disagree or are not contented with this tax reform?
It has already dismantled the North, and there's going to be this build-up resistance from the South against the North 2027. That's where people are looking at that it is definitely going to break up Nigeria. He has ambushed the North and left the entire South and eastern part of Nigeria, in akimbo. Because they are the one controlling the resources. The federal government is controlling, even at that point, they are still controlling the resources, taking large chunk, and even determine what to happen with it. Can you imagine they are setting a certain amount of percentage to keep Nigeria one? My brother, well, that is what it is. Our Nigerians are watching to see, how this thing is going to transform. You can see a lot of northern senators, a lot of them are pulling out, the Fulani politicians themselves are pulling out from the APC government. And any moment from now, if care is not taken, Alin Dume is going out. Many of them are going out. They are forming serious, movement, that if possible, the alliance between, if the two alliance works, then Tinubu is gone. And Tinubu is not ready to leave power.
Although he said this in Nasarawa during a function. He said that what people are ganging up against him. But for what Tinubu was saying there, it doesn't look like Tinubu will want to drop power in 2027. But how do you think this will pan out?
Of course, you see the fight now, that was one of the reasons why he wanted to remove Shetima, and factor in Dagara. and the rest of them to see how he's going to manage the situation. But if you are pushing, Shetima out, there are forces that brought Shetima. Shetima did not bring himself. Those forces that brought Shetima, was a major coalition to your victory. So the disintegration of APC will explode to the extent that it will become a south and northern split. North and southern split. They will split. In that process of splitting, there will be struggle. Who is going to control whatever at the end of the day? And that might likely be the end of Nigeria. And that is why the Northerners understand this thing very well. And they have positioned the repentant Boko Haram in the forest, in the entire south. So it's a very dangerous thing that the southern leaders should understand that there's a massive killer cells, Fulani killer cells in the south now, in case. So they must be prepared to defend themselves according to the Constitution of Nigeria. That is it. So if this power struggle now is not properly, romance, the North is not happy, they're not comfortable that these Yorubas, whom they have always seen as a major ally, have Yorubalized this federal government structure, appointment, ministries now, invading into so many secrets of what the North has sat on all of the years where they were in power. The Yoruba nation are having access to Nigerian confidential documents now. They're having access to treaties. They are getting exposed. They are aligning with forces. You will not know. Like when Bola Ahmed Tinubu said Emiloko, I think the security agencies were able to brief the northern political bloc, also brief the then Mr. President Buhari as at that time to look at that interpretation, because he would have championed Sunday Igboho factor into the political class, and by now maybe would have been singing a different thing entirely, which most Nigerians want. Everybody want to move out from this contraption because it has become a death trap.
Okay, thank you.